Good morning, Fellowship Hi-Crest family. Welcome back to Jumpstart. This devotional is for Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, and it's taken from the book of Acts, chapter 7, verses 1 through 13. It's about our brother Stephen, who chapter 6 says was a man full of God's grace and power. He was one of 7 men selected by the 12 to distribute food to the people. But one day, some of the Jews began to debate with him and couldn't hang. So they lied on him, saying he blasphemed Moses and even God and the temple, which resulted in his arrest and being brought before the Sanhedrin, who asked him, "Are these accusations true?" Stephen's reply was, "Brothers and fathers, listen to me. Our glorious God appeared to our ancestors Abraham in Mesopotamia before he settled in Haran. God told him, 'Leave your native land and your relatives and come into the land that I will show you.' So Abraham left the land of the Chaldeans and lived in Haran until his father died. Then God brought him here to the land where you now live. But God gave him no inheritance here, not even 1 square foot of land. God did promise, however, that eventually the whole land would belong to Abraham and his descendants, even though he had no children yet. God also told him that his descendants would live in a foreign land where they would be oppressed as slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that enslaves them, God said, and in the end they will come out and worship me here in this place. God also gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision at that time. So when Abraham became the father of Isaac, he circumcised him on the 8th day. And the practice was continued when Isaac became the father of Jacob, and when Jacob became the father of the 12 patriarchs of the Israelite nation. These patriarchs were jealous of their brother Joseph, and they sold him to be a slave in Egypt. But God was with him and rescued him from all his troubles. And God gave him favor before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. God also gave Joseph unusual wisdom, so that Pharaoh appointed him governor over all of Egypt and put him in charge of the palace. But a famine came upon Egypt and Canaan. There was great misery, and our ancestors ran out of food. Jacob heard that there was still grain in Egypt, so he sent his sons, our ancestors, to buy some. The second time they went, Joseph revealed his identity to his brothers, and they were introduced to Pharaoh. As I study this passage, I see myself in multiple places, and I encourage you to see if you can see yourself too. Whether that be like Abraham, it took you some time to grow into your faith and obey God. Or maybe you took the step of faith and still have not received God's promise. Maybe like Joseph, you've been betrayed by those closest to you. Maybe you found favor with the king. Maybe you are the king. I tell you what, no matter where you find yourself in God's story, he wants you to know there is a seat for you at his table. Stephen is just getting started in this address, but in this passage, he's telling a story from Abraham to Joseph, which spans 4 generations over some 200 plus years. And in verse 13, he ends with a famine in Egypt, portraying how God once again turns a meal into a mission. This begs the question, where are the dry places in your life? What does Egypt look like to me? Today, the Lord has this to say, there is grain in Egypt. You see, at the time, the people had sold everything they had. Their food, their money, their livestock, everything was all gone. When God says there is grain in Egypt, he is saying he will rescue you from that dry place. He is saying he will provide for you in the desert. He will feed you. He will save your very life. In Genesis 45:5, Joseph says, "It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives." His life was but a type and shadow of our ultimate Savior, none other than Jesus Christ. All you have to do is believe. Continue to power up, pour in, and spill out. And we'll see you tomorrow morning on Jumpstart.